recording.
All right, my name is Drew Bolliger, and I am here to present high and low temperature corrosions. All right, so the first subject I have is carburization and metal dusting. Carburization, that is, occurs when it is introduced by people to purposely harden the surface of a metal. The metal will gain hardness, obviously, but it loses some of its ductility, so it can't bend as well. Once heated, the steel releases molecules of carbon moving to the surface molecules that move to the surface will tighten the actual structure and everything, making it harder, but obviously then the more tensile strength that happens, it's going to break. Most metals are susceptible, obviously, but some more than others, obviously, as well. Most have a natural threshold of carbon absorption, but when major heat is introduced, then the threshold is a little compromised there. Iron, nickel, and chromium alloys are the most affected metals by this. The pure nickel can also be very susceptible to this. Chromium also is a metal that is introduced to prevent most of the carburization from occurring. And I have a few photos here of carburization. So we have metal dusting. The gaseous state of graphite deposits on the surface of the metal, and that creates a graphitic layer, obviously. It can carburize in the absence of oxygen. Low alloys vary depending on this, but stronger alloys such as stainless steel can still deteriorate pretty fast. The average temperature is about 450 to 800 degrees Celsius for the metal oxide to create pitting or localized corrosion. Certain gases that are capable of creating H2 and carbon dioxide in petrochemicals are the largest affected areas. The heat treating plants and energy production plants can also be affected as well and everything, hence the high heat. One of the best mitigations for this is to utilize only hydrogen components in the energy production. A few examples here of metal dusting. And as you can see, eventually over time here, it breaks down straight through the metal. My next topic is cold end corrosion. It typically occurs in heating tanks, boilers, engine cylinders, and heat exchangers, where sulfuric acid builds up from combustion. So obviously in gas, or yes, I guess gas. When everything is combusted and everything, there's sulfur in the gas and everything, and it ends up building up on surfaces. Oil and coal obviously contains the amounts of sulfur. Any metal that is used in engines and boilers is susceptible to it. So basically anything that runs on gas. Stainless steel is the main type that breaks down, but chromium, nickel, iron, and alloys, including those of these materials, will break down just as easily. A few different types of cold end corrosion. There's low sulfur fuels may be used if available. A lot of companies just don't use low sulfur fuels because it's a little more expensive. Adding magnesium oxide to the fuel may also help mitigate it. And it creates a magnesium sulfate, which is less corrosive. Also a higher exit gas temperatures can be helped, but it's less efficient for the boilers or whatever they're using. So a lot of companies don't end up using that, but that is also a way that can happen. And as you can see here, you can see the buildup on the surface. It ends up eating straight away at it, and this picture over here, it shows that it's eating straight through everything. Dry corrosion, very interesting type. It takes place without moisture, which usually doesn't happen. Dry corrosion is very slow because, as you know, for corrosion to happen, you need moisture and you need obviously a metal. Obviously, when everything is heated, it's a little more susceptible to everything. And sometimes people refer to it as chemical corrosion. Typically, the corrosion occurs when the metal is in contact with moisture, which is exactly what I said. Gases such as oxygen and liquids come into contact with the surface. The most corrosive material and everything is concentrated oxygen, and when that is not present, corrosion does slow. It's not as detrimental, obviously, as wet corrosion, which I don't think I need to explain what wet corrosion is. And the easiest way to solve this is just to add a coating. And a few examples here. This, actually, I like this one a lot, is the fact that you can see when there's no coating and everything, it gets through. But when you have a coating here, corrosion happens a lot slower. Internal oxidation. Is oxidation from a material away from the surface. So basically, as it explains, it's corrosion that happens inside of the material rather than on the surface. The oxygen, it diffuses into the material and everything, and it breaks it down basically from the inside out. And it's most susceptible in alloys and composites, really something that's combined. And that's actually really important for the study for really testing materials. So people will sometimes purposely do this just to test, okay, so we have this alloy and we need to test to see what kind of corrosion rate happens. So they will purposely put corrosion on it so to see whether it builds up on the outside or it slowly internally corrodes. Study of the corrosion rate may be visible from the surface, but that's really what they're testing for. And usually it occurs at temperatures of 600 degrees Celsius or higher. Internal oxidation occurs, if it occurs, it can affect the tensile strength of the material, and it also creates fatigue over time. Testing and observing internal oxidation can be crucial to combine different materials to prevent corrosion of a finished product in a high heat or pressure area. So really they're testing the material to make sure that if it comes in contact with high heat or anything, that it can stand up to what it's supposed to stand up to. Prevention of the internal corrosion can occur by combining particular metals together. Sometimes they'll alloy certain metals that pair well with each other to make sure that one can corrode faster than the other, to make sure that it doesn't break down from the inside out. And a few examples here is that usually they combine silicone and copper, or chromium and nickel. This mitigates internal oxidation by the minor material being broken down quicker than the major material. few photos here. It's kind of hard to see on this one, but the top piece, one to the right, actually is a lot more corroded. It's supposed to look a lot more red, like the rust color, and that's really showing that all these different materials that they have together, that one is breaking down a lot faster. High temperature oxidation. That is a attack from salts at any state and temperature of at least 750 degrees Celsius. The main areas that it is vulnerable in is power generators, gas turbines, and refining and petrochemical areas. Waste incineration areas also are pretty susceptible to this. Oxygen is the most common form of high temperature corrosion, oxidation. When you have liquid metals, they become extremely susceptible to all of this, and when it is oxidized, the metals will obviously break off and lose a lot of their material. And we have a few examples. As you can see on the top one there, everything broke down pretty quick there and rusted away very fast. Decarburization is the heating of a metal and the loss of carbon. This can deplete the metal's ductility and strength, and it also forms scale and it forms cracks over time slowly. Decarburization, it can be harmful depending on the metal and the use, honestly. There's a lot of things that people do. They actually will put that in to actually test the strength of the metal and everything. Some metals, they will actually do that depending on what the metal actually needs to do. They will put that in. Occurs in an environment where oxygen and hydrogen is present, which is almost everywhere. And the metal has to be heated to around 700 degrees Celsius. And actually we have a standard here, the ASTM E1077 is the test for decarburization. And the test, it has three different layers, or three different types. The main type is that there is a measurable layer of oxidation on the surface of that is carbon-free. The type 2 is that there's 50% or more that is carbon-free, and the type 3 is 50% or less. And it is extremely harmful in machinery manufacturing because you want your machines that are building whatever to be strong. And we have a few pictures here. This picture down here actually is a picture of a testing facility that is decarburizing a material at the moment. Nitriting. Nitriting is the hardening of the surface of a metal while keeping the underlayers softer. And it occurs usually at a low temperature. The wear and fatigue when you do this is greatly slowed, but it is susceptible to heat when you get to that processing temperature of 700 degrees Celsius. And mainly it is used in gears, crankshafts, valve parts, and camshafts. It's common in low carbon alloys, but it's also fairly common in titanium and aluminum as well. The metal is heated and nitrogen is infused into the metal, and it's done that by a few different ways. Gas, ion, and plasma are the most common ways. And I have a few pictures here. That top one, I believe, is a gas version of it, while the other two are plasma. And sulfidation is the chemical reaction in metal that produces sulfur on the surface or inside the material as well. Most common effects, it most commonly affects turbine engines, such as in planes, and some marine equipment as well, which is subs. It really requires regular monitoring because as soon as that happens, it can break down an equipment very, very quickly, and so that is something that is very detrimental. It really occurs at extreme temperatures and pressures, hence why it's on marine materials and aviation equipment. There are two different types that they consider. The first type, which is the worst, is at 825 to 950 degrees Celsius, and the second type is 700 to 800 degrees Celsius. It occurs in engines due to the fuel, due to combustion and the production of sulfur within the fuels. And I know that usually fuels only, plain fuels only contain either 0.3 to 0.4% sulfur. But over time, that does build up, and that will corrode very quickly. It produces sulfuric acid that breaks down the coating and the material if it's not coated at all. And the way to prevent it really is to alloy it with aluminum or tungsten, and that can slow it down over time. And I have a few pictures here, as you can see, right in the center there, that is starting to break down. That's a little more detailed picture of what's going on there. And I have a few more excited.